Bing bong! Welcome, fellow hoops heads, to another episode of the Last Shot NBA show here on Little Birdie TV, brought to you by our good friends at topsport.com.au. As usual, I am your host, Nick Metallinos, and once again on a Monday morning, we are joined by Benyam Kidane from NBA Australia. BK, if your team isn't 5-1, we're not the same.
It's good to be with you, my man. It's a good time to be a Knicks fan.
Yeah, best start since the 2012 season when they went 6-0, ended up winning 54 games, I believe, that season. So hopefully they can continue this run. But look, we're going to get into it. We've got a lot to talk about, a lot of NBA action over the weekend. And we're actually going to talk about a team that you're pretty high on, the Miami Heat. Now, you mentioned last week that you're a very big fan of the way they play. They play defense like demons. They've started out the season on fire, BK. They beat the Grizzlies yesterday, 129-103. Jimmy Butler, 27, 7-5, 5-1 on the season. BK, what have you seen from them so far?
Well, you nailed it. The defense has been mean to start this season, and they did a great job just assembling this roster. Adding PJ Tucker in the offseason was big for them. But when you've got a lineup of Kyle Lowry, Jimmy Butler, Bam Adebayo, and PJ Tucker, I think their defensive rating is like 84 or something. Like, they're just all great on-ball defenders. They can switch everything when you have a big man like Adebayo. And the biggest takeaway, I think, from their start to the season is that they're winning games without necessarily shooting the ball well or playing that well offensively. Like, they can just shut you down defensively, get out in transition, and even if they're not putting up shots, they're getting enough stops that they can just get themselves over the line. So that's the kind of stuff you need in playoff basketball. And the fact that they're kind of already showing that in the opening week of the season as they're still figuring things out is a bit scary.
Yeah, what you mentioned, they're not shooting the ball. They shot the ball pretty well yesterday. I mean, they made 21 threes. And that's the thing with a team like Miami that, we've talked about the defense, but I think they're really versatile on the offensive end as well. The three ball was dropping for them yesterday. Very versatile. Like you said, when it comes down to playoff basketball, they've got options. They can play any type of way, and that's why I like them. Very early days, but Jimmy Butler, he's averaging 27 points, 7.5 rebounds, 5 assists. Carried the team in the bubble, feels like a couple of seasons ago, but carried the team in the bubble when they made the NBA Finals. How far can he take them?
I'm very high on Jimmy Butler just because he's, for me, one of the most unselfish superstars. Like, he's the guy in Miami, but he's making sure Bam eats. He's letting Kyle Lowry, do his thing and cook on the offensive end. He's looking for guys like PJ Tucker, Duncan Robinson, and he's the biggest Tyler Hero fan there is. So when a guy like Butler is leading from the front, and his main goal is to play defense and get everyone else involved, but he can still go out there and score 27 a night. That's the kind of formula for success.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, part of the reason why he wanted out of Philadelphia is that I guess he didn't feel like he was surrounded by the teammates that had that sort of same drive as him. He seems to have found it in Miami, though, hasn't he?
Hey, shout out Heat culture,
Yeah, shout out to the Heat culture. Look, I've picked Milwaukee to come out of the East, and I'm going to stick with that. But I definitely think Miami is going to be a very, very serious contender. Obviously, got to be one of the favorites, or definitely up there in the favorites for the NBA championship. Let's move on to the Utah Jazz, BK. They lost yesterday, 107-99. First loss of the season. They kind of lost their way a little bit in that game with the Bulls. Lost their composure, a lot of turnovers, were missing some shots. After the game, Donovan Mitchell said, look, we did a lot of things wrong in our execution. We were looking to be bailed out by the whistle, so now you're compounding those two things. What did you see from the Jazz yesterday?
I think it was just the fact that they played a good team. They've had a pretty easy start to the schedule. I mean, they're 4-1, but their only real win of substance came against the Denver Nuggets. They haven't really beaten any good teams, beat the Thunder and the Kings. So I think this probably says a bit more about the Bulls than it does the Jazz. I mean, Donovan Mitchell isn't really playing that well either at the moment. He's only putting up 22 a night on, pretty poor shooting splits, 28% from three and that kind of thing. So whilst they do have a good record, I think it could be a little bit of fool's gold just because they haven't really played against that many good teams just yet. And I think we're at the point now where we can classify the Bulls as one of those teams.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And I agree with you. Look, the NBA regular season is long, right? You're going to have ebbs and flows and, but I just feel like with the Jazz, and I mentioned this in our first show when we had a look at the season and our, thoughts on who might come out of the West. I feel like the Jazz have been one of those teams where they put up good regular season numbers, but once it comes down to the playoffs, I mean, they've had 3 first-round exits, I think 2 second-round exits. They haven't really made a deep playoff run. And I'm going to stick to my beliefs that, look, people tell you that it can't be done until it's done. So, I mean, they can very well end up making the Western Conference Finals this year. I don't know. They've got depth, in their squad. Like, you've got guys like Clarkson and Ingles coming off the bench, that's pretty two handy guys to have coming off the bench. So they've got depth, but do they have enough to make a deep run this season?
Well, I think the depth is definitely their biggest advantage. As you mentioned, those two guys, the sixth man of the year contenders, and then even guys like Eric Paschall and Hassan Whiteside that's coming as well. So they do have a long list of guys, but for me, it really does start and finish with Donovan Mitchell. He's the number one guy. He's the superstar of this team. He is the key cog for them offensively. So I mean, we saw what kind of a leap he took last season. If he continues that kind of trajectory again this season, I mean, I do have confidence that he can be that guy and be the best player on a very successful playoff team. But as you said, we're still yet to see that from the Jazz. We haven't seen them really kind of break through beyond that second round. And championship windows are short in the NBA. They have a lot of talent on this team. They have some older guys as well. So this kind of has to be the year where they really do break through, because they have the best defensive player in the league in Gobert, a young superstar in Donovan Mitchell. Like there has to be, I think, a bit of a sense of urgency for the Jazz this season. And I do expect them to win a lot of regular season games, but it's all going to come down to that postseason, which is still a fairly long way away.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I agree with you on that, because I feel like this could be their season to break out, because the Lakers, they're old. I think they end up figuring it out and make a decent playoff run, but I'm not convinced on them winning it. Phoenix, Phoenix, Denver. So you start to look at some of these teams and you're like, well, why couldn't it be the Jazz? They do have enough, like you said. Quick point on the Jazz as well. Least past week, Joey Ingles actually hit his 1,000th career 3 for the franchise. What a career Joey Ingles. He's really carved out his niche in the NBA. He knows his roles, played his role to perfection. So shout out to Joe Ingles.
Hey, shout out South Dragons.
Yeah.
But no, that is amazing to hit 1,000 threes and on like 41% efficiency as well. Like there's a very short list of players, the Steph Currys and the Klay Thompsons and the like, that have done that. So it's a pretty awesome achievement for Joe.
Yeah, and you feel like with Joe, like he could definitely just do another 4 or 5 years, of just like playing this role. Like he would actually be able to do it as well.
And knowing Joe, he could care less about this record.
Oh, absolutely. Joe does not care one bit about this sort of stuff. BK, we've had a few surprises this season as well. There's been some teams that I've seen the standings and I'm like, hang on a second. Obviously the Washington Wizards, 5-1, Cleveland Cavaliers, 3-4, but how many people expected them to sort of even win that many games? Sacramento Kings lost this morning, so they're 3-3. Timberwolves are 3-2. Who surprised you the most?
I mean, you mentioned the Wizards. They've been unbelievable to start this season. But for me, it's been the Cleveland Cavaliers, because my expectations for them just were not anywhere near this. I know they're only 3-4, but they had good wins against the Nuggets, the Hawks, and the Clippers. Teams, theoretically should all be beating the Cavaliers. And the fact that they've got 7 players scoring in double figures, the young guys are really kind of stepping up as the veteran guys, like Kevin Love's kind of taking a bit of a backseat. Ricky Rubio, he just makes any team a little bit better when he's on it. I just like the mix of young guys and veterans on this team, and they might have something here. I like what's going on in Cleveland.
I was actually watching the Cavs game against the Lakers on Saturday, I think it was, and I was actually surprised by how little Kevin Love was actually involved. I think he ended up playing like 15 minutes or so, but you're right. They've got a nice mix of a couple of veteran guys, some young guys, exciting young guys. We will see what happens with the Cavs. I've just always been fascinated by them because I just feel like LeBron took them to like such high levels, and then whenever he leaves, they just drop, so far. We will see what happens. I'm going to go with the Washington Wizards as my surprise because I expected them to, for the lack of a better phrase, completely suck balls this season. Russell Westbrook left, so I may have a theory on that every time Westbrook leaves a team, that team gets better automatically, but we'll save that theory. We'll say it's all facts here. But if you look at that squad, they bring in guys like Spencer Dinwiddie, Kuzma, Trez, KCP, and these guys have come in and they're contributing. Like Dinwiddie's averaging just under 20 points, 5 assists. Trez is at 19 points, 10 rebounds. Kuzma, 15 points, 12 rebounds. One of the highest rebound averages in the league. So guys have been coming in, they've been contributing. And look, you know what? I'm going to go out on record and say it right now. Spencer Dinwiddie is a better team player and fit than Russell Westbrook.
For what they're doing in DC with Bradley Beal, I think you can definitely make that argument. I mean, the way that he, is able to score from beyond the arc, which is such a big deal now, and he's not. The ball doesn't stick with a guy like Spencer Dinwiddie. Like they can keep that thing moving. And like you said, you mentioned the guys that they've brought in. They've brought in a lot of pros, and they've brought in guys that have won. Kyle Kuzma, he's won. KCP, they had that championship experience with the Lakers. So the fact that they're kind of building this team from, okay, Bradley Beal is going to score all our points, and that's what we want. And then everyone else is going to chip in and play their role. And that's what they're doing really well. Like Bradley Beal is the center point of this team, but everyone else just kind of has a clear role, and they're just out there hooping. I like what I'm seeing there. And Kyle Kuzma talked about all he needed was an opportunity to play, and so far he's keeping a lot of people's mouths shut right now.
Yeah, absolutely. He's backing it up on court, and there seems to be a real camaraderie with the team as well. And I'm not going to say anything about Westbrook, or anything like that. And look, Beal, who knows if he sticks around, but if they keep playing like this, and that fun is around that team, he's definitely going to probably want to stick around and play with these guys. Do you think the Cavs make the playoffs this season?
Ooh, I think they could make the play-in. I don't know about the playoffs, just because, as we spoke about last week, the Eastern Conference is no joke anymore. There's a lot of teams, and it's a long season. I think for them, if they make the play-in tournament, get that little taste of playoff basketball, which would be a big deal for these young guys, and then they can build on that for next season. I think it'll take a heck of a run to get into the playoffs, but I'll put them in the play-in.
And I'm actually going to say the Wizards are going to make the playoffs. And what about you? Do you think they make it?
They're the number one seed right now. They're definitely making the playoffs. They're on a championship run right now.
I can safely say they won't be the number one seed by the time the playoffs come around. BK, look, we're running out of time. Let's take a quick look at some games. Today we've got the Jazz at the Bucks and the Rockets at Lakers. Now, with the Bucks, Antetokounmpo will be playing, but Chris Middleton will not due to a non-COVID illness. And as far as the Lakers, there's a lot of people out for the Lakers. Ariza, THT, Kendrick Nunn are out. Wayne Ellington, Dwight Howard, LeBron James, questionable. Anthony Davis is probable. Who do you like in today's games, BK?
Well, no, Chris Middleton's a big out for the Bucks. So I'm looking for a bounce back game for the Jazz.
Yeah, I agree. I think on the second night of a back-to-back, like you said, I think Chris Middleton is a big out for the Bucks. I'm going to go with the Jazz as well. With the Lakers and Rockets, so many Lakers either questionable or already out. I'm going to go with the Rockets, actually.
Hey, let's roll the dice with the underdogs. I don't mind that one bit. They'll see some weaknesses in the Lakers, but even without all those guys, I'm still rock with the Lakers.
Okay, all
Look,
right. Well, they are.
The Rockets team is a high school team. This is a young team.
Facts. And let's take a look at a couple of games for tomorrow. We've got the Blazers at the 76ers and the Nuggets at the Grizzlies. BK, who do you like in the Blazers and 76ers game?
Well, things are going rough over in Philly at the moment, but they had a good win yesterday. I'll rock with the Blazers. I'll go against my Sixers.
Ooh, okay. I'm going to go with the 76ers tomorrow in that game. I think they win that one at home, and the Nuggets at the Grizzlies.
Ooh, I've been riding the Grizzlies train all season, so I'm not getting off just yet. Let's go Ja Morant and the Grizz.
Okay, interesting. Oh, that's a bit of a toss-up. That's a tough one to go with. I'm going to rock with Ja Morant. I think he's playing like an absolute demon, so I'm going to rock with the Grizz in that one there. BK, thank you very much for joining us once again. We'll see you again on Friday, and yeah, enjoy the NBA basketball this week. This has been another episode of NBA, the Last Shot NBA show, geez. Brought to you by our good friends at topsport.com.au, and we'll see you again on Wednesday morning.
Appreciate you, Matt.
Cheers.